Sarvebhyo Namaha. I welcome you all to this evening's talk on the Union budget. It has been an annual ritual of sorts with the Gokhale Institute of Public Affairs to hold a talk or even a discourse, if I may say so, on the Union budget every year, typically soon after the Finance Minister delivers the budget speech. And this year we have the rare privilege of having amidst us Professor Krishna from the Center for Economic Studies and Policies from ISEC, Bengaluru. On behalf of the Institute and all our listeners, I extend a very warm welcome to him. Welcome you, sir. Gokhale Institute was started by DVG and guided by his vision, the Institute has been holding such lectures. The main objective is to facilitate discourse related to all aspects of public life, and the union budget, as all of us very well understand, has a bearing on almost all strata of public life. It influences directly or indirectly all our lives. So it is important to analyze it in their various aspects. And more often than not, it so happens that our public understanding, or the understanding by and large of the policies, of economic policies particularly, are somewhat slipshod because not every one of us is equipped to analyze the economic policies. So when we have people like Professor Krishna to inform us about all the issues, it is indeed a rare privilege. A few words about the professor. He has held many distinguished positions, and he holds a PhD in economics from the University of Mysore. He has been active in the research field. He has taught at various universities, and he has written books, edited books, etc. Presently, like I said, he is a professor of economics at the Institute for Social and Economic Change, the distinguished university, the distinguished institute, ISEC in Bengaluru. He specializes in various aspects of economics, such as environmental economics, urban economics, sustainable development, biodiversity conservation, economics of civil aviation, etc. So having a close and well-founded knowledge of all these areas, Professor Krishna, I think, is eminently suited to analyze the union budget for the year. So once again, I extend a very warm welcome to you, sir, and I request you to please accept a small token of gratitude and begin the deliberations.
Good evening, one and all. Thank you, Shashikiran, for your kind introduction. And I am highly indebted to the Gokhale Institute of Public Affairs, which is founded by the noted poet, novelist, and also a distinguished scholar, D.V. Gundappa. And first time I am here to meet all of you, the governing council members, including Shashikiran, Mr. Ramu, and my well-wisher Sadananda. I lost one of my well-wisher, B.S. Krishnamurthy. I fondly remember he is a very honest, dedicated person who served the Institute for Social and Economic Change for more than 3 decades. So I used to recall his contributions to development of ISEC, and even today we all fondly remember him, even though he is no more. We lost him very recently, last week, and it was a great shock to me. So he invited me for this lecture, but unfortunately he's not there to listen to my lecture. I really miss him, his presence, and may God give him a peace and heavenly peace to his soul, departed soul. So when I am going to discuss the recent budget, Union Budget 2022-23, so I am discussing this budget in a common parlance, or giving a general perspective, because if I talk very technically, it may not reach some of you. Therefore, I make it as simple as possible, and you can intervene at any time if you have any doubts. I'm happy to clarify some of your doubts or questions, anything. So the title I have given for this talk is that Union Budget 2022-23, Development versus Environment. So the Indian economy is at the crossroad. On the one hand, there is onslaught of climate change, ecological disasters. They are occurring very frequently. You might have seen many cyclones. We have witnessed both the Bay of Bengal as well as Arabian Sea in recent times. And apart from that, there is also COVID waves, COVID-19 waves, one after another. We are facing the third COVID wave. When compared to second wave, it is more or less intensive, but still the life is very uncertain. So in this regard, we need to ask questions whether we have to go for development at the same time. We need to conserve the nature or environment or ecology or natural resources. Because I am being an environmental economist, I have given several lectures how COVID emerged, how COVID has taken place in Yuan city of China. So the main reason for outbreak of COVID-19 in this city is mainly attributed to destruction of environment and ecological resources in various parts of China. China witnessed a rapid growth over a period of time. In 2004, it was contributing only 4% of its world's GDP. Now it has emerged as the second largest economy in the world, that is 16% contribution to world GDP. So many resources, environmental resources, have been destroyed for economic development. You might have seen the flyovers they build, the construction activities which are going on. So they are unimaginable. The way they are destroying the earth is unimaginable. So as a result, some of the animals, wild animals, including some of the birds, flora and fauna, they are being destroyed. So they don't find any food. So they have to migrate, or they have to depend on other animals or resources. So the bats, which is one of the bird or animal, so which is the reason for emergence of COVID-19. Bats are considered as they transmit the viruses from animals to human beings. That is popularly known as zoonotic relationship between the. So most of the diseases they transmit from man to man through various vectors like mosquitoes, ticks, etc. But here in this case, the animal to human beings, that is genetic in nature. This leads to these type of diseases we are facing nowadays. So let me deal with the central union budget 2022-23. Then I'll come to the environment later with this introduction. So the structure of my presentation runs like this: supply or production related budget, or why some importance has been given to supply side management of the economy, or production side of the economy, that is being estimated or calculated in terms of gross value addition. So the another side of the, even though economists think that they are the within the economy, but when it comes to calculation or estimation, there are two parts. One is GVA, that represents production or supply. Another is GDP, that represents demand or consumption. Two parts. So then I give some background about the economy and environmental situation in India. Then I deal with economic survey, what it predicts, not in detail, very crisp or very with giving 2 or 3 examples. Then Union Budget 2022-23. And what is the developmental agenda of this Union Budget? Is there a requirement to balance both economic development and environment is the thing I am going to discuss. So you know that what is budget, and I need not explain, but still as a an introduction to budget, it is my duty to explain what is budget in simple words. Budget is a government's quantitative statement, or it is an estimation of income, what are the sources of income the government gets, and expenditure, where the money goes, what are the way in which the government spends the revenue received from the various sectors or various components of revenue for a defined period, say for example 1 year. So the budget normally includes various revenues earned through taxes, indirect taxes, excise duty, and even other forms of taxes, and the expenditures and assets, what are the assets and liabilities of the governments, and where money goes to which sector. So this is just a plan for a year. Budget is, in simple words, it is a statement of account of the government to make a plan for next 1 year. What are the sources of revenue they get, and how the same revenue is spent for various economic activities in order to have a growth and development perspective in the long term. So the main agenda of the budget is to create employment opportunities and spend more on capital expenditure to create more jobs, more production, that leads to increase in the growth of the economy in terms of at least GDP. Gross development, GDP means gross domestic product. So what are the objectives of budget? One has to see what are the objectives of budget. The main objectives of government budget, especially reallocation of resources or economic use of resources. So we have resources, that is revenue. How best we can make use of these resources for better outcome, better economic prospects, economic growth and development. So where we spend these scarce resources is more important, whether we are spending more on paying salary or paying interest or paying loans, paying towards loan, interest payments, or we are spending the scarce resources for economic development in terms of asset creation, property creation, or capital formation. Where we spend, that matters a lot. So therefore, reallocation of resources or economic use of resources, available resources, more important. Further, we need to prevent pilferage, waste, and reduce expenses. So the government sometimes they spend more than they have the revenue sources. So it is happening in almost all the governments throughout the world. They spend more than they get through the taxes. So this has become a new culture among the governments, because the reason they give for this overspending is that they want to make development more. So in the long run, as J.M. Keynes said, in the long run we are dead. Therefore, economic development has to take place when we are alive. So that is short-term perspective, not the long-term perspective. The classical economist has the long-term perspective, and but in case of the demand-side management propounded by J.M. Keynes, that gives more importance to short-term economic development. So we have to develop the economies within our lifetime. So the another objective of budget is that to make economic development, economic growth more faster. So higher GDP growth rate, they have to push for more growth, more exports, like that. And another important objective is that economic stability. So too many cycles, business cycles, will lead to the economy will not be in a position to adjust on its own. So if shocks occur, so economy takes time to re-equip, or it has to come on the track. For example, because of COVID, because of financial crisis, the economic development and growth have been shattered. So therefore, we need to achieve stability, economic stability, in the sense that the price stability is more important, market stability is more important, interest rate stability is more important, and the control of inflation is more important, and creating more jobs for the people more important for the stability of the economy. Further, the governments have social security and social welfare agenda. They should reduce the inequalities in income and wealth among the people. The gap between the rich and the poor should be narrowed down in the long run. So unfortunately, in India, it is increasing day by day. So then the plan and control the income and expenditure of the public enterprises. So apart from private sector, we have public enterprises such as defense, railways, and telecommunications, and even other basic and social and economic infrastructure. They play an important role in economic development. Once upon a time, they are called as the Navaratnas. Even today, they are called Navaratnas, but due to the priority of the government is to privatize them. That is monetization of the public sector. So they also play an important role. But defense cannot be privatized, and so other sectors they are thinking to privatize. So reducing regional, sectoral, and societal disparities is also very important for the budget. So these are some of the 7 important objectives of the budget. They have to keep in mind while announcing the programs and making the expenditure for the next 1 year. So then question arises, what is GVA? GVA is a measure of total output from the supply side or production side. GVA, recently we introduced this GVA. So GVA shows that the overall production of the various sectors take into account in money values. That is called GVA. GVA is a measure of total output and income in the economy or economic output from producer side, supply or production side. So it provides the rupee value for the amount of goods and services produced in an economy after the deducting of cost of inputs. When you deduct the cost of inputs for production of goods and services, then we'll get a GVA. For example, raw material cost, electricity cost, water cost, etc. and etc. labor cost, etc. So it also gives sector specific picture, like agriculture sector, what is the total production this year, industrial production how much, the service sector, what is the value of contribution of service sector to total GDP, like that. So on the other hand, the GDP gives the economic output from the consumer side, that is demand and consumption side. So GVA is supply side, GDP is demand side. In other words, GVA is production side, GDP is consumption side. The goods which are produced need to be consumed. So there is a two-way of accounting of total economic wealth of the country from the GVA and GDP. So if you might have seen in recent times, because of COVID-19, the GVA value has come down drastically. But still there is a consumption for basic goods and services. So especially real estate sector production has come down drastically. The hotel and tourism sector has hit very hardly during the COVID period, and industrial production, especially MSME, has come down. So in this way, when economists give importance to economic development of a country, some economics, they favor the supply side economics. That is, they give more importance to production side. Some economists like Keynes, they give importance to demand side, creating more aggregate demand. So there is always some sort of discussion, some sort of controversy, some sort of I can say the competition between supply side economist and demand side economist. So if you look at in 1930s, 29 to 32, there was a global economic depression, first time that took place. So that time the prevailing economic thoughts were borrowed from Adam Smith, the father of economics. So he used to give more importance to supply side economics, where all the countries should be free their markets. There should be free flow of imports and exports. That was his idea. So that leads to more creation of more employment, division of labor, that is specialization. So some countries, they are rich in labor, some countries poor in labor. And some countries like America, they are rich in capital. India is rich in labor. They can do transaction, they can do exports and imports by exchanging these surplus goods, like that. So therefore, he has given more importance to supply side. But in 1932, there was a great economic depression that leads to a lot of unemployment. There was no supply. There was no demand, even though there was supply. Supply did not create its own demand. So the supply side economists, they used to say that supply creates its own demand. But in 1932, between 29 to 32, even though there is supply, there was no demand. So supply did not create the demand. As a result, there was a unemployment, there was a lot of economic crisis. So later, J.M. Keynes, In 1936, he published a path-breaking book called A General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money. So in that book, he has emphasized more on demand-side management. We need to give more importance to demand side. When people have money, they demand the goods, then only production takes place. Even though production is there, when there is no demand, you cannot buy goods and services. So therefore, we need to give importance to both supply side as well as demand side management. So how this budget balances all these two, we need to check. So supply side economics believes that producers and their willingness to create goods and services set the pace for economic growth. So they give more importance to the producers. Producers, they need to invest more. For that, the government gives various perks, tax rebate, tax incentive, and subsidies to establish. They welcome foreign direct investment to invest more and produce more. So on the other hand, while demand side, economics believes that consumers and their demand for goods and services are the key economic drivers. So consumers needs to be given more importance. So there should be some effective demand. There should be some demand for the goods and services. So how do we create effective demand? Providing job opportunities. Income earning activities should be more. So then only, even though there is supply, then there will be demand. Otherwise, there will be gap between supply and demand. So let us come to the 2022-23 Union Budget. During 2021, you know that the GDP growth has come down drastically. Even it was minus 7.3%. It has come down drastically, and the GDP growth has come down. So for the next year, 2021-22, up to financial year February up to February, it is estimated. Advanced estimates we call it. We take 6 years data and predict it for another 6 years. So 6 years original data, and another 6 years it is forecasted. It is forecasted. According to this forecast by the National Sample Survey, National Statistical Organization, NSO, National Statistical Organization, it has estimated that the economy during 21-22, it was grown at the rate of 9.4% of the GDP, which is highest in the almost all the countries of the developing countries. So for the next financial year, from 22 to 23, it is expected to grow between 8 to 8.5%. It is a very promising pictures, promising figures the government has given. But these rates can be revised at the end of the financial year. Next year, it may be the GDP of 21-22 will be revised, and next year this rate will also be revised. What is the total expenditure in the present budget? The total budget of the country today, we have reached to 39,44,909. So this is the government's total budget for the 22-23. It has increased almost 17 lakh crores. 17 to 18 lakh crores. So total receipt, this is the total expenditure. If you take the total receipts from the tax and other sources, it is 22,83,713 crores. There is a shortfall of 16,61,196 crores. So this is, we call it as deficit, fiscal deficit. For this, we have to borrow money from World Bank or some other countries, or through market sources, money market and capital market we have to borrow, or banks we have to borrow. So total fiscal deficit in 22-23 is around 6.4%. It has come down from at least 9.4% in the previous years. So the beauty of the this year's budget is that they have given more focus on capital expenditure. That is the one of the what we call it as it is a strong push for growth, supply side. That is, the capital expenditure has increased from 35.4% to rupees 7.50 lakh crores. Earlier it was 5.54 lakhs. So there is a great increase in the investment towards capital expenditure. Therefore, this budget is praised by many economists because of this government took a very good decision to create more assets. It is more, rather than spending on revenue expenditure, it is spending on capital expenditure. It creates goods and services, it creates infrastructure, and creates more job. So this is equivalent to outlay of 2.9% of the GDP. So effective capital expenditure may even increase to 10.68 lakh crores during 22-23, which is about 4.1% of the GDP. So the union government for the first time has given importance to capital expenditure to create more infrastructure throughout the country. So there are other priorities given by the government. There are 4 priorities they identified to spend the capital expenditure, 7.50 lakh crores. So this including PM Gati Shakti scheme, inclusive development, productivity enhancement and investment, sunrise opportunities, energy transition and climate change or action, and financing of investments. So these are the 4 important programs under which the budget has been conceived. So the very interesting is that they have given major push to infrastructure development. This infrastructure including roads, railways, airports, ports, mass transport, waterways, and logistic infrastructure, where the capital is going. So they want to create one station, one product concept to help business and supply chain, 2,000 kilometers of railway network, 400 new generation of Vande Bharat trains, 100 PM Gati Shakti cargo terminals for multimodal logistics, Parvatmala, their development in the Himalayan roads, etc. So they have also given importance to national ropeways. 60 lakh new jobs are expected to create through the infrastructure. So they have also given importance to inclusive growth in terms of development of agriculture sector. 2.37 lakh crores direct investment to 1.63 crore farmers for procurement of wheat and paddy, especially in northern India, those wheat producing areas. And for the first time, the government has announced chemical-free natural farming to be promoted initially on the banks of Ganga River. So this is the one area they wanted to develop chemical-free natural farming. And also Kisan drones are used to identify the drought-prone areas and flood afflicted areas. And they have also ambitious schemes like river linking, just like Ken Betwa project. It has been invested around 40,000 crores for linking the rivers in UP and Madhya Pradesh. And they have also announced the one more scheme for interlinking of rivers from Orissa to Tamil Nadu. So this is how they have planned 5 linking DPR, that is detailed project report has been prepared to link the rivers. And still that needs to be accepted by all the states, because in India interstate water disputes is very high, and the cost of this type of project is very enormous, and they may take a lot of time to complete. And even scientists observe that the regional variability in precipitation, that is rain, and also availability of water varies. As a result, that may lead to more disputes and cost escalation, and more importantly, this leads to environmental destruction, they have predicted. Apart from that, one more important schemes they have announced is that energy transition and climate action. Recently in COP26, the Prime Minister of India has announced that by 2070, India achieves net zero carbon. So for that, they have come out with some plan to invest more on green energy, that is renewable energy, including solar PV production. They want to increase the production of renewable energy to reduce the climate change. And one more problem we have been facing in the urban area is that even though there is a promotion for electric vehicles, more consumers are not coming forward to buy electric vehicles, mainly due to the batteries recharge points are not available, that is infrastructures are not available. As a result, they have come out with an idea to swap the batteries, exchange the batteries, just like our cylinders, gas cylinders. So after the gas cylinder is over, we will exchange it to another one, like that. So they have planned to reduce the CO2 emissions, 38 million tons annually. And also coal gasification, reduce the dependence on coal, and they want to use some natural resources to reduce the coal burning. So in this way, they have planned to address the climate change. So you can also see this budget at a glance. I want to highlight some of the important things here. So the revenue expenditure is somehow they have managed to control. And as a result, the capital expenditure, this one, the capital expenditure has increased to, as already I mentioned, 7.50 lakh crores. 7,50,246 crores. This is the big contribution of this 2022-23 project. That is 24.5% increase in the budget. This is expected to create more infrastructure, more employment in the infrastructure projects. But India is always a two country in terms of rural India and urban India. But here the importance has been given to urban India, urban infrastructure, but rural India has been neglected. This is the views expressed by some of the economists. And at the same time, the total receipts, revenues are increasing, and if you look at these figures, the percentage of fiscal deficit is increasing over a period of time. But from last year to this year, it has been reduced from 9.3% to 6.4%. If you look at the tax revenue, the receipts from the sources of revenue for the government, the corporate tax, income tax, goods and services tax, customs, union excise duty and service tax, this tax collection has also increased in recent times, 1.40 lakh crores in the month of January. That gives an impression that the economy is recovering, fast recovering. At the same time, the capital receipts, disinvestment schemes, they have not given, they are not getting more money generated out of this. So that is, you call it as asset monetization. Only 65,000 crores they generated. It is not coming at the much more. If it comes to expenditure, you can see here the expenditure. In this expenditure, you can see the defense sector received highest priority. It has increased from 5 lakh to 5.25. Whereas consumer affairs and other, it has been reduced drastically, minus 28%. Road and transport, as I mentioned, it has been given a big push. Road and transport from 131,149 crores to 1.99, almost 200 crores. Railways is given importance, and rural development. This is the sector which has received less. Even Mahatma Gandhi Narega, National Rural Employment Guarantee Schemes, where the government has reduced from 1,55,000 to 1,38,000. So this is where the economists are highly concerned. This will reduce the income generating activities or employment generation activities in the rural areas. So agriculture, they have given some support to farmers in terms of paying for their purchasing of inputs. That is there. Therefore, they increased from 1.26 to 1.32. But as chemicals and fertilizers, they have reduced drastically. And communications, especially 5G, they are promoting. They have given more importance to communications, 54, almost double. And education, that is expected more, but they have given not much expected amount. And one more sector which has been given less importance is health and education. Both they have not given, they have not received good amount. And housing also very less. Therefore, this one part of the side, negative side of the budget is that they have neglected the social sector, including health, education, and housing, etc. So they have given more impetus to urban development and infrastructure development, and they have promoted corporates more than the common people. This is the criticism of the budget. And you might have seen, for example, subsidies to various social sector. Food subsidy has been reduced drastically from 2.86 lakhs crores to 2.60. There is minus 27% reduction. Fertilizer subsidy reduced, petroleum subsidy reduced, and other subsidies also reduced. So it means that the subsidies are being taken out, especially food subsidy, they have taken out, that is the worrisome. Especially, you know that around 25% of the people in India, they are very poor. That is called multi-dimensionally poor. Recently, the Niti Aayog has brought out the multi-dimensional index linked poverty in India. So even today, around 25% of the people are very poor, so they need food subsidy or food supply. So what are these expenditure on some of these programs? For example, Mahatma Gandhi, Narega, from 21-22, it was 98,000 crores has been given, but reduced to 73,000 crores. And Kisan, PM Kisan, only a small increase, 0.7 increase. And look at other Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, they have given importance. And one more program, National Education Mission, they have given importance. So among these. So among the welfare of women, children, and scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, there is a tremendous increase for welfare of children. And they have given more importance to children's welfare in terms of health, education, etc. That is a good development. But at the same time, the government has huge liabilities. For example, out of total GDP, 60.2% is our liabilities. It is a huge. It is growing high. So it means that the government is borrowing more and spending on all this infrastructure, etc. And interest payment is also rising, 43% out of the total budget. 43% of revenue goes to interest payment. So this is another dangerous way we are moving in terms of loans as well as interest payments. So when it comes to analysis of this budget, several important policy measures are given to boost the economic growth, high capital expenditure on infrastructure. That is, they have given most important to supply push, production, supply side. No changes in the personal tax structure. So that comes under demand side. That is, people should have more income in their pockets to spend more. So when they give more importance to supply, not giving importance to demand, there will be a lot of lack of spending. The effective demand is less. So when there is no effective demand is not up to the mark, then even though there are goods and services, there are no people to buy it. So this is creating a vacuum, a gap between the supply and demand that may need to be bridged. So rising inflation is the another reason why people are, even though they spend, that spending is due to, it may not be, the inflation always creates this problem. The inflation, even though people earn more, that is the net income is becoming less and less because of this inflation. So that creates more unemployment and pull down the demand. And this also creates the income and wealth inequality. Already 10% of the rich people in India, they are almost commanding 65% of the resources. So that is creating more gap in the rich and the poor. And the government might have taken some measures to reduce this income and wealth gap through introduction of wealth tax and imposing more tax on the ultra rich people. So that the same can be cross-subsidized to welfare programs of the rural people and the rural poor. So even I wrote one piece yesterday that budget fails to environment. So when it comes to the river linking, I have already explained this is the negative side of the budget, because already we are facing ecological destruction throughout the country in terms of deforestation, soil erosion, and non-availability of water in the rivers, because we have destroyed the Western Ghats and the Himalayan forest. So watershed management is not there. So therefore, the government should have given more importance to ecological resource management, creating more afforestation. So even I was sharing one example with New York City, how they manage their water in terms of buying the watersheds, land where some of the water resources are there. They purchase the land and they secure the watersheds for supply of water to New York City. So here we are pro-growth, at the same time we are against the environmental resources. So already the per capita water availability has come down drastically. That will impact on the agriculture production, drinking water needs. So we have to give a balanced way to protect the environment. At the same time, sustainable development practices should be encouraged. Of course, there is a scheme called chemical-free natural for agriculture, like that. For example, in Ganga, they do it on the banks of Ganga River, 5-kilometer stretch. Both the side they do natural farming, chemical-free natural farming. But unless the Ganga River is cleaned, if the farmers use the same polluted water, so they cannot ensure the natural farming. Almost it is a chemical farming, because the inputs they use is the polluted water. So like that, there are some policies need to be addressed properly. Otherwise, they are in the policy level, but the fundamental problems remaining the same. So even if already the Chief Minister of Karnataka, Sri S.R. Bommai, has raised voice against linking of rivers. Even I was contacted by the press, and I have explained in detail why it is not helping the development of the various states, because it involves huge cost, expenditure, and governments or state governments may not share the expenditure, and they may not give permission, or the water sharing formula will not be accepted by some states, including Karnataka. So likewise, ecological destruction will also be there, linking of. So therefore, a watershed development and lift irrigation schemes and small check dams and barrages, that would help. That is cost effective as well as quickly can implement within 1 or 2 years. But linking of waters, it may take 50 years. And even construction of dams will take even 50, 60 years. So therefore, this is a colossal loss in terms of economic cost as well as ecological disasters. So at the same time, we have poverty. On the other hand, we are making economic development. The fruits of economic development is going to the corporates and rich people, and it needs to be shared between the common man. That is also one of the issues in India we are facing. We try to create awareness among the government why policies should be inclusive one, and we have to take into account the rural poor into consideration in achieving the both climate goals as well as economic developments. So even I wrote so many articles on before 1980s, before 1991, implementation of economic liberalization policies like globalization, liberalization, and privatization. So the economic growth was less, of course. It is around 4.5% to 5%. After liberalization, it has picked up to 8.5% and more. But before 1991, even though economic growth was less, slow, but the environmental resources are well protected. There is no such pollution we are facing today in Bengaluru, New Delhi, and other cities. And ecological catastrophes like submergence of cities through floods, etc. So we are facing more ecological costs nowadays, health cost, for example. So therefore, the government should have a vision to have economic development, at the same time have environmental conservation. That is called sustainable development. Sustainable development means economy should also grow, at the same time environmental conservation should also be given equal importance. So that is missing here. At the same time, the developed countries asking developing countries to mitigate the climate change. If a lot of money goes to mitigation, there will be less money available for the social sector like health, education, rural development, etc. So therefore, government should, instead of incurring huge cost on the climate change, we should pursue the policies in such a way that every economic development should be on sustainable development practices. So in this way, we can restructure the economy and bring the balance between economic growth and environmental development, as well as the rich and poor should share the fruits of the economic development. So sometimes in GDP, we always give importance to growth of GDP, numbers, the per capita, but they are the numbers which always mesmerize us. So per capita income, for example, around 94,000, 95,000, but even today many households, see, comparing the rich, ultra rich to the small poor person, this does not give a proper importance, a proper estimation. So therefore, we need to give importance to poverty and inequality because India, if really wants to become a developed country, we have to have a balanced economic development. We have to develop the rural sector. Even Gandhiji told we have to develop rural India first. So, but in recent economic policies, they have given more focus on industrial development and urban growth at the cost of rural development. Therefore, migration is taking place, and in the coming years, almost 50% of the population will live in cities. Already cities have become unsustainable in terms of traffic jam. You can see the water availability is less, the pollution in the air is very high, and like that. So we'll face a lot of economic cost in the coming days. So the real estate growth, you might have seen, it is unbearable. Ordinary people cannot buy the land and build the house. The economic cost is increasing. So therefore, we need to control the prices of essential goods as well as the construction costs should be reduced. So in such a way, we need to restructure the economy. There is an urgent need to restructure the economy. We should promote green growth, green economy. For example, in UNDP countries, European countries, they have pushed more importance to green growth. Even in Netherlands, they decommissioned the old dam and restored the ecology. So there is a drastic change in the perception of the people towards economic development that is more sustainable. Unless we breathe good air, unless we breathe good air and take good food, and our health will be affected. So therefore, health consciousness throughout the world is increasing. It is not the economic growth ultimately leads to welfare. It is the environment that also very important for our welfare. So at the same time, India has a vision to achieve 5 trillion economy in the coming days. So at what cost? That is also important. So achieving 5 trillion economy is not important. What is more important is that sustainable development is also more important. Creating more jobs in the rural areas, and the production and consumption should be based on the environmental awareness should be there. What we are consuming, what we are producing is more important. So the behavioral change is more important. The government should bring the behavioral change in the production sector. The production sector use less resources, minimize the waste, and produce environmental friendly goods and services. At the same time, the consumers should consume more environmental friendly goods and services. Then only the economy can be on the path of green economy. So after as a last word, so I was interacting with the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi ji very recently in one of the seminar. Is Harun Gandhi. He stays in South Africa. So there are two types of exploitation we are doing on the nature. This is also considered as exploitation, as well as what we call it in other words is that the name he has given is that I forgot that name, but it is exploitation. I will get that word. So once when Arun Gandhi was with Mahatma Gandhi ji, the Arun Gandhi, the grandson, wanted to buy a new pencil. So then Gandhi asked, where is the old pencil? So then Arun Gandhi told it was very short, it has become very short, therefore I thrown it out. Then Gandhiji asked him to bring back that pencil, then only I will get you the pencil. So then this boy searched that pencil, finally he got it and took it to the Mahatma Gandhiji. Then Mahatma Gandhiji told him that, so still you can use this pencil for some more days. So you are wasting the resources. So when you waste the resources, then the nature has to produce more resources for you. For example, food waste, various types of waste, water waste, electricity waste, everywhere we are wasting. So therefore, the Gandhiji told him to minimize the waste. So this is also called as violence, he called it, violence against the nature. There are two types of violence, direct violence and indirect violence. Indirect violence is also called as passive violence. So direct violence is that we are directly attacking the nature and take out the resources. The indirect violence, that is passive violence or exploitation, is that wasting the resources. So therefore, the economy should not waste the more resources. We have to save energy, we have to save water, we have to conserve the resources. Then only the economy prospers, not by production alone, what I mean to say. So production alone does not lead to economic growth. Conservation is also very important. Therefore, the country should give importance to both supply side as well as demand side, production and also consumption. So efficiency in using the resources, that should be prioritized more in the budget for the long-term economic and sustainable development of India. I stop here. I thank you everyone for giving your patient hearing. I think I took almost 1 hour. Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah.
I am from the area where the famous, infamous Extensive project is going on.
Correct, correct.
And I am a small plantation. I will begin with I got a lot of doubts and questions.
Yes, sir.
But I cannot take all the time because we have other colleagues also.
Yeah.
So your first mention was Wuhan virus.
Pardon, sir?
Wuhan virus. You said it has originated in Wuhan
Meat market, okay.
market.
Yeah,
But sir, WHO has denied that.
yeah.
And America, Joe Biden, he appointed a committee to probe into the Wuhan virus and give a report in 90 days.
Yeah.
And he has also kept quiet. We have not been able to successfully take out the details. So, are you inviting controversy on this?
No, no. Shall I answer to that question? Yes. You asked a very good question. So there is always a relationship between the nature and human beings. So because we derive ecosystem services from the nature. For example, every minute we breathe because of the nature, oxygen. The water I just drank, it is coming from the nature. So all the living things and non-living things, they interact each other because of the sun rays. The energy is coming from the sun. So you might have seen the climate change. What is climate change? Climate change means that we receive the long wave energy from the sun. That the sun emits the energy. It passes through various segments of atmosphere. So there is also ozone layer where it prevents the harmful rays, and the sun rays enters into the earth. When the sun rays enters into the earth warms up. So since morning to evening you might have seen the earth warms up, and part of the energy goes back to atmosphere. When the energy goes back to atmosphere, it should flow, it should run smoothly. So the incoming energy from the sun, the outgoing energy from the earth should be, there is no hindrance, it should go. But in recent years, due to emissions of greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, chlorofluorocarbons, etc. So these gases, they are mobilized in the stratosphere, a segment called stratosphere. So when the earth energy goes back, it is comparatively weak when the long wave energy comes. This is called short wave energy. The energy comes from the sun is called long wave energy. It runs very fast. But the energy which is going back from the earth towards the atmosphere is weak, comparatively weak. So this energy passes through the segment. These chlorofluorocarbons, methane, carbon dioxide, these are called greenhouse gases. They absorb this energy. They push it back towards earth. They are not allowed to escape to the atmosphere. As a result, climate change takes. Why earth is warming up day by day? Because of this reason. Therefore, you know that the plastic houses are called as greenhouses, because where the plants are grown, the plants absorb the energy. The plastic does not allow to escape the energy. Therefore, through photosynthesis, they grow more. So the same mechanism is there in the earth, on the earth. So I agree with you. The WHO has constituted an expert committee to look into where the COVID-19 originated, and is it due to leakage from the UN laboratory or due to some natural reason and other things. But they did not come to conclusion. I agree with that.
They did not allow them to go into the investigation.
Investigation also, that is also there. I agree with. But I have gone through various reports of UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, how the viruses spread. Zoonosis. Zoonosis means that why viruses spread from animals to human beings. That is well established. Viruses spread from animals to human beings. So this is SARS, for example. That is SARS. Earlier they are called SARS. Now they are renamed it as a COVID-19 in 2019. So that time I was in China, but came back around October month. December it was outbreak. So I studied one report called United Nations Environment and Development Report, that is also popularly known as Our Common Future. That Brundtland Committee report, very famous report, everyone knows that. In that report they have given a very good example So the example is like this. In Malaysia, there was a fruit called durian fruit. They used to export this durian crop or fruit to other countries. They used to earn a lot of foreign exchanges. All of a sudden, that durian fruit has come down. As a result, the Malaysian government has constituted an expert committee to find out the reason for a drastic reduction in the production of durian fruit. The scientific committee went into the investigation and detailed way, and they found that there is a relationship between bats and production of durian crops. How they found out? The Malaysian government has given permission to production of cement. So the cement industries were established around the various mountains. So the mountains were destroyed, and they used to take the sunnakallu anta heltivala. They used to take and produce the cement. So in this mountain, the bats were living. Bats means ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತು ಬಾವಲಿಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಸವಾಗಿದ್ವು. So ಯಾವಾಗ ಬಾವಲಿಗಳು ಸತ್ತೋದ್ವೋ, when the bats were killed due to intervention of the cement industry, so that has directly affected the pollination of durian crop. So the durian crop has come down drastically. So it means that nature has influence on every one of us, even on health, even on ecosystem. So when the mosquitoes and others, they don't find host means food, they will attack us. So but the scientific community, they have to conclude, they have to come to conclusion why they are taking so much time. Yes. So ultimately it is because of climate change. See, we are unable to bear this temperature. Temperature level is increasing day by day. So how can we, a small planktons, a small ticks, small viruses, they bear with this temperature? So what they will do, they migrate, they adapt. Adapt to the situation means that just like we adapt, during summer season we wear cotton clothes. During winter season we wear sweaters. So during rainy season we bring this umbrella, isn't that is called adaptation. So the same way the animals also adapt. Say for example, nowadays so many animals, they adapt to the new situation. So when there is heat, they go to a place very that is very cold, normally cold. So they migrate like that. So they even come to the human body because they have to survive. Everyone wants to survive. It is a fight. Every day it is a fight between the strongest. They want to survive on the earth. So in this way they attack whatever host is there. So like COVID also like that. ಆಯ್ತು, ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ನನಗೆ ಕನ್ನಡ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಗೊತ್ತು.
ಈಗ ನಾವು the budget, it has become a formality now.
ಹೌದು.
With state government or central government.
ಹೌದು.
See, every year budget takes place. They say something at the end of the fiscal.
Correct.
There is no review.
Yes, I agree.
What we have achieved,
Correct.
what we have not achieved.
Correct.
Where we have shown that we have achieved something. That type of this thing is nowhere, either
Correct.
in media or with this thing, government. No pictures will be given what is achieved, what is not achieved, where there is it is strengthened, where there is a weakness, whether review required. No such thing.
Yes.
Every year budget takes place. They say something. They announce some programs. See, as you have mentioned, this budget also, where they have to give more importance, there the drastic reduction is happened, 25%, 30%, to some extent 35%.
Correct.
So, but no one is raising the voice against this. I don't know what is the type of this thing taken place.
Yes.
See, it is a very what you call the questionable and remarkable this thing. So still, why this kind of this thing is taking place? Nobody is talking. Nobody is this thing. I am not against the government.
Correct.
I am telling where the preference needs to be given. Their preference is not at all given, especially in this budget. Okay, fine, capital expenditure, okay. Yeah, see, just by building the roads, improving the infrastructure, infrastructure means according to them bridges, flyovers, this, that. Are you sure that it gives employment opportunity to right from the poor, whoever it is, from labor class to our? No, everything is managed by use machines. There only, then only
Correct.
we can this thing. So like that, what is the your this thing on the entire budget?
Yeah, I failed
Because
to.
I've seen your
Yes, yes, yes.
review also.
Yes, yes. Sorry, I failed to mention that one. The implementation is the biggest gap we have in the throughout the development era. So what we commit today. So even I wrote that in the my article recently published in the Tribune. We are good planners, but bad implementers. We have showcased so many programs, but their review is very poor. They are not reviewing at all. So even though we have commitments towards climate reduction, so next year we don't know what would be the implementation of that commitments. I totally agree. There is a what we call it as policy failure at the central as well as state governments level. No discussion are taking place. So at the end of every year, there should be some review.
It has become a formality.
Yes, yes. It is a ritual. It has become a ritual. Yeah.
As we see, despite of reducing the social this thing,
Yeah.
time, there is a huge increase in borrowing money and payment of interest, everything.
Yes, sir. Yes. I totally endorse your view.
Sir, when you say review,
Ah.
does it mean referendum?
No, not referendum. Certainly referendum, not referendum. Review means that, for example, in creation of employment opportunity. So what is the status of employment opportunities in the last year and what the budget has achieved in this year in creation of employment. So that is the scientific data should be there on the public platform to witness by the at least by the economist. So that gives a confidence among the people. So good that the government should itself come forward. What are the achievements it has done? What are the failures? So there was one seminar in ISEC, Professor Raju was giving. Professor Raju, KV Raju, he might be, Sadanandore. So he was a political advisor, economic advisor to Adityanath government, Yogi Adityanath, UP. So he was giving lecture on the success of the government in handling the in-migration during the COVID period. So there was a lot of out-migration from the UP. Youths have out-migrated to all over the world, all over the country. And during the COVID period, they were coming back. And how Adityanath government has managed it very well. So he was giving the success story because he was an economic advisor. He has to give success stories. There is no review. So then I asked this question, being a patient listener, just like you, I asked the question. Okay, well said, you managed very well. But your data itself shows there is a lot of in-migration. It means that the state is not providing employment opportunities. Therefore, people are going out. They are migrating because in UP they are not creating employment opportunities. If employment opportunity is there, why they migrate to other states? So these type of questions we need to ask, even though they are looking very absurd, but these are the reality one has to understand. Yeah.
Close with one small question. Sir, you mentioned that chemical and fertilizer allocation is minus 24.7%.
Correct.
This is on one side. On the other side, the government is giving maximum importance for natural farming, organic farming, etc. And if you really go through the balance sheets of Pesticides India Limited, etc., their turnover is increasing like anything.
Correct.
That means government is giving importance for natural farming. At the same time, because of subsidy, farmers are using abundant of chemicals and manures. So don't you think this is the right thing by reducing the subsidy by 24 or 25%, so that farmers are compelled to go for natural farming? unless, there is a policeman in the signal, you never follow rules. If there is no policeman, even you pass the signal when it is red. It is the same logic here. So they cut our subsidy, you have to go for natural farming. What is your
See,
economics?
as an environmental economist, I support natural farming and organic farming. Yeah, yes, I am coming to that one. So, unless the organic inputs are available to the farmers, if you impose, you grow naturally, so farmers will not prepare, because farmers he also wants to make money, just like industrialists. They want to leave a livelihood on this one. So he cannot be impose something organic farming or natural farming or chemical farming. So therefore, India is what I observe is that it is transiting in the sense that it has to come to a conclusion that whether you need organic farming or chemical farming. So sometimes already the chemical farming has destroyed the soil, isn't it? Especially in Punjab and other places, even in Karnataka also. So therefore, as you rightly said, there is no monitoring of use of chemical fertilizers, what extent it is used. So they have come out with some neem coated urea like that. So even then, the government all of a sudden it cannot stop the chemical fertilizer. It is growing, demand is increasing, and the farmers are increasingly using the chemical fertilizers. They cannot stop it because they are addicted to it, because they want to grow commercial crops. Because of globalization, they have to survive. So organic farming is becoming a lip service. It may not succeed unless the organic inputs are available at a lower cost.
So I differ from this. I will talk to you once.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I'll take 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. On behalf of the Institute and on behalf of all those who are listening to this talk in the YouTube, I sincerely thank Professor Krishnaraj for devoting his valuable time in sharing with us the various facets of the Union Budget 2022-23. Thank you very much, sir.